They didn't even look me in the eyes when they let me go. Just a generic conference room, fluorescent lights humming above like a funeral march. I remember staring at the beige walls as the words came out of their mouths. Your position has been eliminated. Elimination. Like I was a mistake they had to erase. No thank you for 5 years of relentless dedication. No mention of the sacrifices I made. No one asked about the late nights, the missed holidays, or the ideas they presented as their own while I sat in the background, invisible. I was just another disposable name on a spreadsheet. I held my breath, nodded, and walked out with a forced grace. But inside, I was shattering. They said I didn't fit the culture. That was code for, you're not one of us. I wasn't flashy. I didn't gossip over overpriced lunch breaks. I got results, and that made me dangerous, threatening. So they pushed me out with a smile and thought I'd disappear, but I didn't cry. I rebuilt. I walked out of that building in silence, but inside, something was born, a storm, a fire, a promise. I will come back, not for validation, for victory. Back at my tiny apartment, I sat in the dark and felt the weight of rejection crush my chest. My phone buzzed with fake sympathy, coworkers who knew but said nothing. So sorry, shocked, lies. They watched me drown in silence. I opened a blank notebook and wrote one sentence. They fired the wrong woman. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. That was the moment my revenge began. Quiet, cold, and calculated. Days turned into weeks, and the world outside moved on. But I didn't. I wasn't in a hurry to prove myself. I let their ignorance fuel the fire within me. Every night, I pored over financial reports, market trends, and every piece of public information about the company that discarded me like trash. I studied their weaknesses, their blind spots, the cracks in their armor. It was painful and thrilling, like learning the secret recipe to their downfall. No one reached out with real help. No mentor stepped in. The silence was deafening, but I welcomed it. It gave me space to grow, to rebuild my identity far away from the hollow hallways where I once belonged. I didn't post inspirational quotes on social media. I didn't brag. I just worked quietly, like a shadow lurking in the background, preparing for the moment I would strike. My friends told me to move on, to let it go. But how could I? The betrayal ran too deep. I refused to be a footnote in their story. I was going to write my own chapter, one they would never forget. I started small, investing every penny I had saved, networking with quiet power players who saw potential, not a broken woman. Every deal I closed was a silent rebellion. Every step forward a nail in the coffin of their arrogance. It wasn't just about money. It was about sending a message. My first move was subtle but deadly. I acquired a small, overlooked competitor of the company that fired me. No one noticed, no headlines, just a whisper in the industry. But that little company held key clients my former employer desperately needed. Slowly, like a shadow creeping through a crack, I began to chip away at their foundation. I remember the rush the first time a client called me directly, asking for proposals, recognizing the shift. I kept my cool, calm, controlled. They didn't know it was me. They just saw the competitor growing stronger. My network expanded, and with every new connection, my silent army grew. But the best part, watching their stock dip slightly each time I landed a new contract. Watching the panic in their eyes through industry news, I was no longer invisible. I was becoming unavoidable, and deep inside, the wound from my firing started healing, replaced by a fierce pride. If this part of my story resonates with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. That's how YouTube knows this matters, and how more people can find it. The deeper I dug, the more I uncovered. Hidden beneath the polished surface of my former employer was a web of lies and secrets I never imagined. Financial mismanagement, corruption in the top ranks, deals made in shadows that betrayed not just the company, but every hard-working soul who believed in it, including me. It was a poison that had been eating them from the inside out. One night, after poring over confidential documents I'd obtained through discreet channels, I felt a mix of horror and vindication. They had been pretending to be untouchable, but their empire was rotten. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for justice. Silent revenge, yes, but also redemption, not just for me, but for everyone they had betrayed. The weight of this knowledge was heavy, but it fueled me further. I could use this truth as a weapon, a sword forged from broken dreams and shattered expectations. The final game was beginning, and I was ready to play it cold and without mercy. The day I walked back into their world was nothing like before. No fear, no doubt, just a storm ready to explode. I showed up at their annual shareholders' meeting, not as an employee, but as a force to be reckoned with. The room buzzed with whispers as I took the floor, papers in hand, evidence of every deceit, every betrayal they tried to bury. Their eyes widened. The CEOs who once dismissed me now faced me with a mix of shock and rage. I spoke slowly, each word a hammer cracking their facade. I didn't yell, I didn't plead. I was a silent reckoning, a ghost haunting the empire they thought was untouchable. The shockwave from my confrontation rippled through the company and beyond. Board members scrambled. Whispers turned into heated arguments. Some tried to bury the truth, but others, unexpected allies, stepped forward, grateful for my courage to speak out. Former colleagues reached out quietly, their eyes full of relief and hope. They wanted change, too. Behind the scenes, I built coalitions with those who believed in redemption and integrity. We weren't just dismantling corruption. We were rebuilding a shattered trust. My revenge was no longer about personal pain. It had evolved into a mission of restoration, and every small victory, every exposed lie, strengthened my resolve. The public began to watch. News outlets caught wind of the scandal. I wasn't just a former employee anymore. I was a symbol of justice rising from broken dreams. The company's empire, once untouchable, was now cracking under the weight of its own sins. Victory felt sweet, but it came with a cost. Late nights spent battling in boardrooms, endless legal fights, and the isolation that came with walking a path few dared to take. Friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the storm I'd unleashed. Family questioned my obsession with a past that seemed to consume me. But I refused to falter. I reminded myself that the pain of betrayal was the fuel, not the cage. Every sleepless night was a step closer to justice. Every sacrifice a brick laid in the foundation of my new empire. I was no longer the woman they fired. I was a force forged in fire and silence. In those lonely moments, I found strength I never knew I had. The rage that once threatened to destroy me became my armor. My revenge was no longer just about them. It was about reclaiming my life with grace and power. The moment I had been waiting for finally arrived. I stood in the boardroom, no longer as a defeated employee, but as the majority shareholder, owner of the company that once discarded me. The tables had turned so drastically that even the most arrogant faces were pale with disbelief. I held the power to decide the fate of those who humiliated me. I didn't gloat. Revenge wasn't about breaking others, it was about rising above. I promised transparency, respect, and a culture where hard work mattered. The same culture they had claimed I didn't fit. Watching the old guard scramble to accept the new order was poetic justice. This was more than a win. It was redemption. I had taken their world, rebuilt it, and made it mine, on my terms. The shattered dreams they left behind. I transformed them into a legacy of strength, resilience, and silent revenge. Sitting in my new office, overlooking the city lights, I allowed myself a moment to breathe, to reflect on how far I had come. The woman who once walked out with nothing but broken dreams had rebuilt an empire with her own hands. But more than that, I had reclaimed my dignity and my voice. Revenge had been my spark, but resilience was my fuel. I realized that my story wasn't just about them anymore. It was about every person who felt invisible, dismissed, or underestimated. To those people, I silently vowed, rise with grace, fight in silence. Let your success be the loudest response. I was no longer the victim, I was the architect of my destiny. And this chapter, my final act, was only the beginning of a new legacy. The story I lived is not just mine, it's a testament to the power of rising from ashes. I didn't need to shout my victory. I let the world see my transformation in every board decision, every honest conversation, every step forward. The company once built on lies now stood on integrity, shaped by someone who knew what it meant to be broken and to rebuild. If you've ever felt invisible like I did, leave a comment below. I read them all. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Someone out there needs this story just like you found it today. I am proof that when they say you'll never make it, it only means you're about to make the most powerful comeback of your life. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is the one lived quietly, with grace and strength that speaks louder than any words.